Hello and welcome to the Unofficial Controller Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast, episode 66, 2020, the year of the delays, but we ask, is that a good thing? With me, George, as always joined by Tom, always 30 minutes late to my 10 minutes early. How's it going?
I'm good. Like all top games, though, I get delayed as well. I was delayed from the airport by 30 minutes. So your facts are correct.
Well, you're COVID-19 free and you felt safe to come over here after having me and Phil come over to New York a week or two ago. And
you were the test dummies.
The guinea pigs.
The guinea pigs, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good. You've brought Paulina back with you?
She's scurrying away somewhere doing some work in
One
the
of
studio.
The coolest celebrity accoutrements is a housemaid of Thai origin.
Spanish.
Oh, I forgot. Paulina's Spanish. You. I don't quite know what happened to the other housemaid.
Don't insult her.
I won't. No, I'm more worried for previous housemaid.
I'm quite impressed with this little studio, Phil Scott.
Yeah, I don't know.
Chief sound engineer and sound over artist to Mick Fleetwood.
The crayon says it all.
And Mick Hucknall, apparently.
Yeah.
He only works with the mix.
Only works with the mix. Listen, before we lose any of the new listeners that we seem to have picked up with our ramble, obviously we're back in the studio together for the first time, so no more Zoom interference or noise or any of that drivel. No more hearing helicopters land and take off from your spacious loft apartment in the Central Park, New York district. So let's give them the comfort blanket of knowing what we've got coming up, Tom. So as always, we're going to give them some of the finest and hottest news in the games industry. Give me an example of that.
Got some Spider-Man PS5 news. And we've also got another superhero game news, but we'll reveal all.
Ah, okay. So keep listening in for that. Tom doing his bit to tease you forward as we go. Then we're going into the feature, which this week is all about delayed games. Something that's hit us this year particularly, but it's not something that's new to the gaming industry. After that, none of these games have been delayed. New release highlights, Tom. So we get Stingray, we call it Stingrays boot. Through that lens, we look at the new release highlights for this week on all formats, including Casio Scientific Calculator. And then the show ends when I ask Tom what he's hoping to play, but it does not begin. It cannot begin and will not begin. Odders, grip that wheel, friend. Tom, what have you been playing?
I've been finishing up Ghost of Tsushima, the story anyway.
Your pronunciation of that's changed again.
Yeah. Been taking Japanese lessons.
Have you?
I have indeed. Yeah. Ready for all those retrospectives we do where we absolutely murder
That's
Japanese developers' names.
It's part of our allure.
It is, yeah.
It is part of our allure. So is that the only game you've been playing, or have you been playing?
No, I've played some Fall Guys.
Oh,
still haven't picked up a win on that yet.
Was the mode mainstream built with you in mind?
Definitely, I'm the mainstream gamer. I don't get into the
What's hot? Fall Guys? Playing that.
Some of the rabbit holes you go down.
They're good rabbit holes.
I'm sure we'll find out.
Intersecting through a Saxon horde, I find gold left, right, and Chelsea.
Played a bit of Overwatch. Managed to get a bit of a team together now on there, which is good. Coaxed a few other friends into playing that finally.
I'm surprised. Normally your acidic ego-like maniac is...
I say got them to play as more like a naval press gang club to the back of the head style.
What's it?
Yeah.
Come play, make me look good. I'm the hero. Heal me.
Heal me. I try. I'm sure there was something else I've been playing.
You've been playing Fortnite on your mobile phone?
No, I'm not quite that mainstream.
Oh.
No, that's probably it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Just rounding up on those side quests on Ghost of Tsushima. I've got the Norio ones.
Yeah.
The monk. I never got those done before I finished it. I did all the other ones for the 3 other main characters. Main side characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just we'll just touch a little bit on spoilers. How did you feel when that mechanic came into play. The ghost mechanic. It's called the ghost stance, isn't it?
Oh, the ghost stance.
I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. It's a quick way of hacking through enemies. It's quite hard unless you're wearing his suit to keep that bar filled. If you get one knock, it goes all the way down.
Yeah, it is.
Which is frustrating unless you use your stealth-like skills to infiltrate and slaughter one of the leaders.
Ah, that is cool.
Yeah, that obviously tops the bar up as well.
I like the idea of that, especially where it's done in that. It's almost like a cutscene, but you're in a boss battle, aren't you? And you see the fear when you win in the boss battle, and then you choose to slaughter the Mongol captain, and then that's where you get that new stance kick in, and it's just basically like a bit like Spartan Rage, but Samurai Rage.
Yeah, very similar to Spartan Rage, actually. Yeah, I thought it was okay. It kind of surprised me when it got implemented, but it gets done in a nice way in the story. Obviously, a little bit of a spoiler.
Yeah, and that little town.
Get it towards the end of that town, don't you?
Defending it.
Yeah, cool. I think it works quite well, to be honest with you. You're contractually obliged now, Edward Ego, to ask me what I've been playing.
What have you been playing?
I've been really deep down the rabbit hole, as you described it. Final Fantasy 15. Still an absolutely brilliant game. I have to say, I've heard you complain. I didn't play this when it launched. Goodness knows why. I think I bought it, but just never got around to playing it. I've heard you complain, and lots of other people complain about, is it Chapter 13?
I believe so, yeah.
I played that without, as it was originally intended, and I actually thought it was good. It was like a delve into the madness. Kind of Ardyn was sort of messing with you, playing tricks with your mind, using his sort of tricks and techniques to make you think Prompto's there and then he's not.
It kills the pacing a bit, though, because the story's going along quite well and then you're just stuck in that area.
Yeah, but it depends how you've played the game, because for me, the first chapters, the pacing was absolutely dead because I kept going backwards and forwards to the hammerhead.
Yeah.
The pacing's not razor fast then, is it?
No, I suppose it's not. I suppose you like to do more sort of side quests and like mopping up getting the XP, doing a bit of grinding.
Yeah, there was a lot of grind for me in the early days, and that certainly made the game, I felt, certainly more enjoyable, especially if you get caught at night time. In the very early days, you don't really realise what nighttime means, and then you stumble across like one of those iron brute giant things that's level 35 or level 2, and it just absolutely rips you apart.
Yeah, I forgot about those.
And half your team. And even an imp in the early days will make a mockery of you. So leveling up was very important to me. Although I could do more, I've arrived at the end game section now, and I don't think there's going to be much spoilers there for... It was also quite dark, that level 13, when you find out when Ardyn reveals that the MTs actually used to be human beings and how sort of horrible you are for calling them MTs. And you even makes a comment about having you having killed hundreds upon thousands of these guys.
Yeah.
And you didn't even blink. You didn't even think about where they came from. Yeah. And then you read some of the little, very short little bits of notes that you find right around that sort of base. And then obviously the big reveal is that Prompto's an MT as well.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great. And for that reason, for me, Chapter 13, I ran through it. I have to admit, I didn't walk, and I found it particularly menacing. You know, when you hide in those alcoves and that guy walks by and then he appears again and pulls you out, I actually had a sense of dread when that was happening. So I thought it was, admittedly, it's not sunshine and happy days and you're not riding chocobos and you haven't got your friends with you, but I do believe in its original vision, it was meant to really illustrate to you the feeling of having been separated from your best friends and how lonely you were in that world. And that's probably why it's not very good. It's a little bit Shenmue 2 in Hong Kong all over again.
Yeah, it probably is designed in that way. It's quite nicely done in that regard, I suppose.
Yeah. And also robbed you of your powers, so you don't So you suddenly have a sense of appreciation of how far you've come. Because up until that point, before you go in there, I think you, Gladio, and Ignis being blind is absolutely incredible. It's not nice, but it's implemented well. Because when you first, before the time jump, he's, really struggling with his blindness. But then when you meet him in the future, he's a lot more accustomed to it. And I thought it was really well done. I like the way he kind of blind throws his elemental power as well. It's like, I have something for that. I've got the perfect thing. And he kind of just lobs it.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of fallout from that. I also quite like the fact that magic it does warn you that magic's pretty powerful, but it's one of these things that kind of is all encompassing. If your guys are in close, it's going to cause them damage as well.
Yeah.
Like I did a frost one at this fire guy, and everyone started shivering and freezing up. I thought it was quite good.
Have you been collecting any of the legendary weapons? I think there's like 12.
The King's ones?
Yeah, that's it.
I think, as far as I'm aware, that's forced upon you. You can't not.
I don't remember getting them all.
That's my interpretation of it. You can't not find them.
I didn't think that they had any. Like, I thought they were all just like random hidden items. I know one of them originally at the start you have to go and find because it's basically teaching you how to do it. But
did you find the one behind the waterfall?
I can't remember. It's a long time ago, but I don't remember getting them all. Definitely not.
I don't know as I've got them. Well, maybe I have. I've seen enough of those tombs to last me quite a long time. I think there's only 13. And then obviously you get your final sword, your father's sword from that guy with the metal arm just before you go in. And one thing I've not really been able to work out, and I haven't Googled it, I have to admit, the summons. Yeah. I can't just pull one down when I like.
It's done in relation to your health, I believe, or how it works very similar in Final Fantasy VII. There's basically like a meter that's charging, and if you're taking a lot of damage or struggling, I think it actually goes a bit quicker. I'm not sure if it was the same for 15.
Is it the blue one around your weapons, or is it the MP or the HP along the bottom? Sometimes it pops up.
I'm sure on 15 they come when you're low on health, and it's kind of like a bit of a get out of jail free card.
If only they did.
Yeah, because they can be very random. I do remember that. Okay. I'm sure there is a little bit of reason.
I've held L2 down quite a lot. Now, whether I don't realise, and then when it flashes up on screen, you can call a summon. It's like, did you know this is charged? And I could have done it before. There's been times where I've been desperate for a summon and been just pulling L2 and nothing's been happening. Anyway, rather than bore people about a 6-year-old game, Tom, we probably ought to head deep into what we call the news. Because other than a bit of Fall Guys, I've been playing nothing other than Final Fantasy 15. The news. We've scoured the very darkest regions of the internet to bring you the latest stories. First up, Tom, what are you going to bring me here?
What's up, Danger? Miles Morales, the star of the PS5 exclusive Spider-Man game, will have a full story arc in the up-and-coming title launching this winter. Game director Brian Horton had this to say. This is a full arc for Miles Morales that started in Spider-Man on PS4. We really are completing this hero's coming of age in our game. It's a complete story. Well, even though this game isn't going to be as long an experience as Spider-Man PS4, sure sounds like a complete story and something to showcase what the PS5 can do. Especially, George, with that screenshot that was released this week. We should have you checked that out?
I have, yeah. Of course I have.
Looks very nice.
I'm a regular news hound, me.
You are.
It looks pretty solid, doesn't it? It doesn't, what's the words I'm looking for? It doesn't scream next gen as much as you'd expect. It's like a very high-res version of the Spider-Man PS4 engine, which is nice to see.
Do you think we're going to see like the city a lot busier, more NPCs about? I think some of the lighting's going to be quite good because from what I've heard and the look of that screenshot, I believe it's going to be set at Christmas, which was rumoured quite a while ago.
That would be cool.
Yeah, and with a winter release, it would probably tie into the launch window.
Priced right, it could be a very good Christmas game. just for the month of December, get it with your new PS5, play it. It's done by the 31st of December and you can move on to the next tentpole title.
Possibly. I mean, I wonder where they're going to have that luxury of being able to stagger the releases for the PS5 a little bit over the coming months, or whether they're just going to chuck it all out there.
I think they're going to chuck a few things out at launch, aren't they? But one would imagine building around a game a month sort of release that they get behind, be it third party or their own. They kind of have this hype train building on a monthly basis that gets you sort of piques your interest after you've during the height of the PS4, for instance. I felt like quite a lot of pressure to be getting a game done, and then before you knew it, the next one was out. You barely got time to sort of rest and chill with the game. You had to play the wheels off it because the very next month something else was coming out. So.
That's why I felt quite chilled with Ghost of Tsushima, because I've got a lot of time to play that and finish it fully, hopefully try and platinum it. Because for me, I'm going to save my money for the PS5. But there won't be much I'm going to be picking up other than maybe a few little digital games, or maybe the games with gold, or whatever, the PS Plus ones. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see the price on this Spider-Man game. It's not, from the sounds of it, it is a full story, but it's not going to be the size of Spider-Man PS4. We've played a little bit as Miles already, haven't we? In like sort of small sections of Spider-Man PS4. So it'd be cool to see that extended more and see his sort of different abilities.
Well, Tom, next bit of news, if you're ready for it.
I am.
Cult Killer. The Cult Killer hit 7. The Cult Hit Killer 7 may be making its way to the Switch. The Suda51 game was one of Capcom's exclusive releases on the Nintendo GameCube years ago, and it may about to resurface if current rumours are correct. YouTuber, talk about getting in some pumps for his channel, Dr. 81, perhaps best known for uncovering evidence of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition, well before it was even announced for Nintendo's hybrid platform, has found a LinkedIn page of an Engine software employee making reference to a Killer 7 remaster for the Switch. His track record is good for rumours, and with Suda51's No More Heroes 1 and 2 remasters also strongly rumoured, consider this one taken with only a very small grain of salt.
Yeah.
And show news, Tom, obviously we've got a new intern, Nancy.
We have.
And the continuing saga of James the Work Experience Boy. How do you feel about the growing unofficial controller podcast empire?
As long as I'm at the top, it doesn't bother me.
Have you? Okay, all right.
Phil's my number 2.
Phil's your number 2.
He is.
What am I to you? The bag carrier.
The bag carrier. Well, you didn't meet me at the airport, did you?
I didn't have a big enough car, not only for your showmanship-like ego, but also one to fit your bouffant into. Because now you're back in the country, we've obviously, your gaming very much, was it Samson, whose hair gave him his strength, and if he cut it off, he had none?
Probably.
And your gaming knowledge is related to your gaming bouffant. Yeah. There was a time
when it was cut short.
It was cut very short, and you thought the PS4 was backwards compatible with the PS2.
Well, everyone's got to start somewhere.
Then you got a few more follicles, and you realise.
I was a traditional actor before this, not a video game historian.
Well, you're certainly here for your voice, and that's about it. Last bit of news: Gotham Knights. What we got?
Gotham Knights, along with the announced Suicide Squad game. The DC Fandom event will also host Warner Bros. Montreal's new game. It's all but confirmed to be a Batman title, and many believe it will centre on the Court of Owls Batman comics, which in our eyes would be great. The game is scheduled for August the 22nd at 6:30 British Sea Time, so keep your bat computer wired in.
Oh, I see what you've done there. This is having you back in the UK, having your hand on script a little bit more, means it's very Sun newspaper, isn't it?
High class.
What do you think
and
about
no trash?
What do you think about all this new Batman game nonsense?
I think it's true. I think.
I know it's true. We know it's true, and we're a small enough podcast where we can say these controversial things, and no one will ever know us and tell us off.
It's a bit nerve-wracking, isn't it not being in the hands of Rocksteady?
I'm just a little bit nervous for another Batman game, really.
I think there'll be multiple playable characters this time. I know there was elements of that in the other ones, but I think it's going to be a main part of that story.
What I would say, it's got a lot to live up to, so it better
it definitely
better be a good game.
And also revealing that at the same event that they're revealing Suicide Squad, are they going to be like night and day comparisons in the quality? And Rocksteady, when they did those Batman games, and that, like they kind of brought a new combat system in my eyes, that's still used today in a lot of other games. Ghost of Tsushima is similar. In the
Do you not feel though, because everyone always hails, Batman's great combat that Rocksteady developed? It felt very much like the combat in Assassin's Creed.
A little bit, yeah. I think that's the only one you could compare it to.
It came
similar
first.
Time. Yeah, no, of course. I think it's a little bit more arcadey than that. Feels more weighty. The Assassin's Creed games I played felt very like sort of floaty combat. I don't know where. Yeah, I wouldn't put them on the same pedestal.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Well, Suicide Squad, the more I think about that, the more I'm like, nah, I don't want this.
It's confirmed, isn't it? It's called Kill the Justice League.
Kill the Justice League, yeah.
Subtitle.
Do we think it's multiplayer or is it single player? We ain't got long to find out.
Player. I am with you on that one. I hope it's single player.
Well, there's the question. And when are we going to get revealed? When are they going to reveal the Harry Potter game?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's not going to be at that event, is it? Because it's just DC. So I think if it's going to be, I think that'll be at the Game Awards. There's always 2 or 3 big titles they show there that are going to be like the big title of 2021. Obviously, the feature's about delays, so we could be seeing delays for a lot of stuff actually being announced.
Could be. Is that all the news? Is that everything?
It is.
You got no bonus news this week?
I think it's been quite quiet.
Surprised you've had, 5 to 8 hours on the plane to browse the internet and come up with some
nothing
cracking news. Nothing.
Mediocre this week.
You've brought me, what's this you've brought me here from New York?
A little Statue of Liberty.
Yeah,
it's actually a lighter.
Snow globe. Oh, it's a lighter and a snow globe, is it?
It melts the snow.
Wow.
So you get a spring version as well.
Wow, okay. Well,
pretty lush that. It cost me some money.
I've never felt so grateful in all my days.
Well, I sent Paulina out to scurry off to the duty free and pick
Well, then if
up.
Paulina's picked it up, I'm very grateful. Knowing you've probably picked it up from
She's staring through the window because she's just cleaned the gutters of the outside of the studio. She's got endless talents. You can get rid of that.
Don't we know it?
You can get rid of that like caretaker you've got who looks after
You
the
showed me
place.
that rather strange. I don't know as normally people practice yoga naked with their housemaids, but when you skipped forward through that video, seems like she's a practice contortionist as well. And I'm not totally sure I wanted to witness all of that, but ever the showman, you felt compelled to show me every single second of it.
Absolutely.
I can see why she earns the big bucks. Question, Tom. They came here for a serious gaming news show, and let's face it, they wanted it. So did we miss anything? Do you have an opinion or take on the news that we may have missed? If so, Tom, how do the collected masses get in touch with us and let us know that insert big news item here that we missed, and let us know that we're flaming dingoes?
You can reach us on questions@unofficialcontrollerpodcast.com, or you can direct messages on Instagram or Twitter.
Okay, like many of you do.
They do.
What else have we got?
We've got a Discord channel, which you can find through the skill tree on Instagram.
The skill tree.
Skill tree, wow. That's one for the bloopers, isn't it?
Have you been working with Phil the producer to make like an RPG, unofficial controller podcast RPG?
Oh, now wouldn't that be something?
Adam the artist, I want the box art by 1200 hours Monday afternoon.
Oh, that'd be epic.
And I want the back sections well detailing the games.
You'd have different classes, so
you use your hair as a whip.
Charm 100, bravery
0.
Oh, make it happen.
You have Ubisoft. Like Paulina as a summon as well. She comes in and carries your bags through to the next level.
Oh, very good. We should move on.
What do I do?
Oh.
So if they wanted to get to the Discord, they'd click on the skill tree on Instagram, level up to the point where they can click on Discord.
You have an ability where you can put enemies to sleep.
Talking about retro
50-year-old video games.
Wow. Pull up a chair. That's what it's called. the enemy actually pulls up a chair and starts off looking all interested, like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like,
"Tell me more."
And then it cuts back 15 hours later.
You'd be an NPC who you encounter in the game, and you have like dialogue options like "Tell me more," and if you choose "Tell me more," your character slowly starts to fall to sleep, and then you rob them.
Oh, I rob them. They fall asleep.
As you rob me of my time for this podcast, you rob the enemies of their treasured possessions.
This is giving your ego the airtime it deserves.
So I'm back in the studio.
Exactly. Keeping an eye on me, making sure...
We better get back to the actual show, Adam.
Making sure the Empire's doing all of your bidding. So with that little segue, which I'm happy we had, because there's another line of revenue for you. The no doubt, although we have visions of it being a next-gen release on Xbox Series X or PS5,
probably going to come out on the Stadia, isn't it? And
it's, we're having this vision of these high-def HDR graphics after multiple delays. It's probably going to end up as a tappy-tappy iOS game.
Sadly, yeah.
Sadly.
It's what the budget can afford.
Well... Talking of delays to our inevitable unofficial controller podcast iOS app, 2020, the year of delays. Why do I struggle with the word delays? I don't know why. 2020, the year of the delays. But we ask, is that a good thing? Game delays are nothing new, but this year, for obvious reasons, have been so many. Developers unable to attend their offices, even still in some cases due to COVID-19 regulations. This move caused teams to quickly learn how to work remotely and apart, using numerous team apps like Zoom, Slack, and Teams. Refining the product, swinging your chair around to ask a colleague an opinion or floating an idea just got way harder. So when these games got announced as being delayed, we think everyone could accept it. This year we've seen Cyberpunk 2077, Marvel Avengers, Animal Crossing's New Horizons, Ghost of Tsushima, and even Last of Us Part 2.
In some cases, the developers seemingly looked the time to refine what was already there. In the likes of Ghosts and Last of Us, we can even possibly see that work in action. I think that's very true there, isn't it?
Yeah. One example that springs to mind in 2020 that was delayed, and in my opinion should have been delayed further, Iron Man VR. It promised so much, but surely in that time they could have hidden the loading screens or at least shortened them.
So let's look at some of the fundamentals. First, the game is delayed after it seems like it won't be ready in time for its release date. But who sets those, and why put a date on something and not release it just when it's ready?
Well, people in the industry, they try to pick a date when they see a game will get its airtime, coverage and appreciation. The marketplace is very busy these days, as highlighted by our own new release highlights. Sometimes there's absolutely bucket loads of drivel to work through to try and get you the picks, and even we get that wrong sometimes. So many more games are coming to Steam and console marketplaces that a lot of games, even major games, get swamped. A prime example is Mad Max launching the same day as NGS5, and a lot of people did not even realise that the Mad Max game had come out, such as a swell of support for Hideous Stealth Outing.
So picking the right time, 3 to 4 years ahead, is tough. This is one contributor to delays. Something obviously the game overruns and gets delayed, so more polish can be added. Sometimes a game comes out in between your announcement, and that is basically the same as yours, does things better, and your game needs to go back into incubation to adjust for this. There's even a delay to make the game arrive at a more acceptable time, such as any of the holiday periods, such as Christmas and summer.
So hitting that sweet spot can sometimes mean knuckling down with the dreaded crunch or pushing back the date. The crunch comes with two issues. Staff happiness and productivity perversely can go down as new members of staff, sometimes temporary, can come on board all hands on deck in an all hands on deck move. Integration into these usually tight teams takes time. Getting those new members up to speed with your aspirations or team vibe can also take time. Working longer hours can mean a more zombie-like staff, frozen to their seats, producing less and being less passionate about their role in the project compared with 1 week earlier. Pushing back a date also means you may miss the perfect sweet spot you've been focusing on for 4 years. One has to imagine that hitting your launch window date pulled out of the air 4 years prior is like 60s NASA trying to get to the moon. There's also the wider issue we alluded to earlier as feature creep. Sometimes game developers try out different things. Sometimes these things really enhance the experience and they can't see the game functioning without them. Other times we've said a game comes out that's so new and fresh and exciting that if you didn't launch with that must-have new dynamic, your game would feel stilted, old and hit the ground feeling like a relic from a bygone era. This latter one must be especially hard as the world of video games is one that's seriously innovative, so adding all these new features and subsets is very tempting. There comes a point where you have to draw a line and say, no, we're launching, and if they don't like it, it is what it is. So, Tom, some salient points there to talk about as we move forward with the feature. Delayed games, obviously, for many years, a delayed game proves to be quite the disappointment.
It does, yeah.
For
Shenmue 3, the obvious one,
well,
recently.
Well, that's more vaporware, isn't it? Started off and it was never going to happen, then it did. Then it had some delays and then it popped out.
Yeah.
I'm talking games that are actually solid and you think, I'm going to get this. I'll give you an example. In the summer of 1997, maybe.
Yeah.
Now, it's not a great game by any means, but I'd previously had WWF Warzone on the N64, the Acclaim wrestler.
Yeah.
And it was terrible, but I liked it because it was the only WWF game I could get my hands on till I had my eyes opened by the WCW games that were good.
Yeah.
But all the fan hype in the magazine said to me that WWF, what was it called? The sequel to Warzone. I forget its name now. It was that terrible. And I used to go into game every week. Attitude, that's it. Every time I got a new Nintendo official magazine, it said it was coming out that month. And I'd go down and no doubt speak to someone we've got to know through the show, Eslo and Midna. To him, I was probably just a snotty youth. Is Attitude out yet? No.
Go away.
Go away. Or Diamond Mills also worked in there. And go away. Stop bothering me. And I would go away. The next month payday, I'd go in. Is Attitude out yet? I'm like, no, we've got no information on it. And it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And I was thinking, this is going to end up being an amazing game. No, it was just terrible. And I think they probably knew it.
Yeah.
So games that have been getting delayed, time immemorial. We ask, Tom, is it a good thing?
I think most of the time, yeah. I think it allows more polish. It allows them to get rid of a lot of bugs. If you think the opposite of what games have been rushed out, especially like your yearly updates in franchises, if they were given more time, how much they could actually improve them and make them less of a buggy mess. I know that's done through patches now, but like you said just then, back in the day, stuff would come out, and if it wasn't ready, it clearly wasn't ready, and it would show in the finished product, and there's no making that better.
There's an argument to be said, though, that these games, they get delayed, and then they still come out and they're a broken, buggy mess.
Yeah, sometimes there's just no fixing it. I think you can also have the problem of it loses its hype almost.
I'm
just trying to think of an example. I'll try and come up with one, but it can really kill the steam of a game.
Definitely. Those times where you and I have both been excited for that big game coming out, and then it doesn't come, and then it's another 3 months, and by that point in time, as we said in the sort of written section of the show, it's lost its moment in the sun, and another game's come out that eclipses it, and that game you're all hyped for gets kind of forgotten. Then it releases very quietly, and no one really notices it. It's a shame, really, because there's thousands of people involved in making a game.
Absolutely, yeah. It is a shame. Nintendo are known for delaying their games quite a lot. Usually the quality is worth it, though, afterwards.
Breath of the Wild is a great example of a delayed game.
I mean, unbelievably.
Saviour of the Wii U. Ended up killing the Wii U.
Yeah, it did,
launching the Switch.
Yeah, it did.
And Zelda games, really from the N64 onwards, seem to always end up launching on two consoles at the same time. One to kind of fulfill a promise that, we said this would be out on this. But actually, it's better on this new thing. You ought to get it on there, because what was that first Zelda game that I think launched on Cube and then was also
Twilight Princess?
Yeah, but it plays better on the Wii with the waggy controls. No, but it doesn't, though.
I'd argue now, I think that was actually better on the GameCube pad.
Yeah, definitely.
They didn't quite have the motion controls as good as they did for Skyward Sword with that, whereas that was clearly built for the Wii. And that's something you see with a delayed game. It kind of dabbles in. They'll think we could integrate that new technology, the new console, especially with Nintendo, because they're always sort of innovating with the actual controller. They're like, oh yeah, we could slap a bit of that in there, and then it'll promote the idea of that new controller we've got for the console. And it sometimes just doesn't come off very well, and then they actually build something for the ground up from it, and it's actually quite good.
Yeah.
I think you might even see that with the Switch. If they do like a pro version, you're probably going to see a Breath of the Wild 2 on there. Because to me, if you're competing against PS5 and Xbox Series X, it's going to struggle with the technology.
What's a pro Switch going to do? Is that going to be...
They've already improved the architecture, haven't they, of like the chip that the Switch uses or the technology it uses, because it is like a fancy mobile or tablet technology, and apparently they've improved that a lot already. So clearly, you think they're going to release like a pro version, but then if they're going to downscale their own first party games to play them on the normal Switch, they could end up looking awful. Like you said before, I do agree they've backed themselves into a bit of a corner. But they still sell.
Yeah, I mean, we're off topic here,
we are.
But, they've become very much, we do handhelds now, and to sit down and shout they're going to make a console that's going to be playable only at home, I think there's a lot of Nintendo fans that would just accept it. Like, okay. But I think there's a new wave of Nintendo fans who are like, well, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, getting back to delayed games, I think, Nintendo are probably a better example of why that works well. Delaying games to basically just bring in new ideas sometimes as well. I think if you
bolster a failing system.
I think if you allow like a creative team some room to implement new ideas, it can have the opposite effect, I suppose. It can just keep, like you said, delay.
Well, let's bring in some of our listeners' opinions and let's bounce off what they've got to say. So Bo Belabra said, I'd rather play a finished game late over a broken game on time. While it's always disappointing to hear a game you're looking forward to is delayed, it's usually for a good reason. I don't think any studio can be roasted for delaying a game originally slated for release in 2020.
Yeah, this year's different, isn't it?
Definitely.
You expect the delays more.
I sometimes wonder as well, like Last of Us Part 2 was meant to be coming out right at the beginning of coronavirus.
Yeah.
And I still stick to the fact that I think they delayed that because they didn't know quite where the pandemic was going.
Yeah.
And if they released a game set in a world where a pandemic was killing everybody, when a pandemic was killing everybody, it would have been grabbed by the papers and it would have been walked into the floor.
Yeah. Sadly, it was walked into the floor for other reasons anyway.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, because other games that have obviously been delayed, Grand Theft Auto 3 got delayed because of 9/11, and then we ended up with the planes cut and the wings removed, so you only had the Dodo, which could barely fly, which was eloquently named.
Yeah.
And then there's been lots of other games that have been delayed due to real-world situations. Like, again, another 9/11 delay was the Dreamcast release of Propeller Arena, flying arcade game based around cities. More like a racing game, but I suppose within that sphere you could fly a plane into a building, which was seen as awfully bad taste. So it never saw a PAL release. I think it did get released in the US eventually. Retro Gamer Thomas has written in, he says, if it's delayed to make the game better, then definitely. When we're all spending our hard-earned cash on a game, we want it to be the best it can be. If that means delaying it, then I have no problem with it. It's when games have those constant delays and issues and they're still hyping the hell out of it, as we alluded to, Tom, and then all you get is a broken mess, makes it even more frustrating, as delays can also build hype. What's your thoughts on that? He says some games unfortunately have much, however much they're delayed will always be terrible. Some companies just delay the inevitable. What do you think about Retro Gamer Thomas's thoughts there?
It's interesting that he says it can actually build hype even more, and I think that can be true in certain circumstances.
It can be very true, yeah.
Like you were sucked into the hype of the WWF Attitude game because you're thinking in your head, oh my god, this is going to be really good.
This is going to be amazing. I remember walking my dog as a young man, and I would like go on these sorts of mind journeys where I'm like, well, I wonder if they're delaying it, because when I played Warzone, what would have made that better? And I've been playing the WCW game.
This is where the delay is difficult, because then in your own head you're building it up as to actually what it's going to be.
I thought it was going to launch with a career mode where you could walk around the stadium and lift some weights and build your character's stats up and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, in your head you're dreaming of all this. In the developer's head they're thinking how they can stop Steve Austin's nipple glitching in the ropes.
Yeah, exactly. Barely get the game out.
Yeah.
And new, but seemingly now regular contributor, Bamel, he says, we all want to play the best version of the game. We like the look of it. We like the look if a delay means that they have extra time to make it as good as possible, then that's good in my eyes. If they release it on time but it's really buggy and doesn't look as good, so they patch it over time, you're not going to get the best experience until later anyway. However, it's a double-edged sword, because if they delay it and it's still a buggy mess on launch, then they're going to get a lot of bad press for that. It's true. Again.
Yeah.
They're sailing a very fine line when you delay a game. It certainly needs to be the very best it can be. A lot of games get delayed. I think some games get delayed, moved out of what would be the optimal release time. Again, we sort of touched on that in the beginning, and then the studio, the developers, like, we're not really going to sell many at this point, and that big game's coming out in that month as well.
Yeah.
And I think people are already kind of hyped for that. So if they delay it another 6 months, then it can release at Christmas or at this point in time, or there's a gap in the market at this point in time where we think we could get some space for this game, get it out, get it some sales. And that's probably one of those moments where the developer goes, oh, great. Goes back to all his artist friends in the studio. Don't worry, mate. We've got another 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh, let's break out Sudokus and let's play Twister. And then, like, 1 month before it releases, they're like, we haven't drawn Shaolin's beard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit like when you get given a project to do over summer holidays, isn't it? You're having all these great ideas, and then last week of summer holidays, you're scratching around to build like a toilet roll rocket.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we should probably just touch on the big delay, which caused us to probably come up with an idea for this feature, was the Halo delay.
Yes.
I feel really bad that yet again the internet has caused something unpleasant. And don't get me wrong, the brute's face or whatever he's called,
he's now known as Craig. Yeah, I love that.
I mean, it's all a bit harsh, isn't it? This is someone's art.
Is it though?
It is, because people are just like ungrateful little whelps, aren't they? Like they're just like, oh no, that's no good. I don't want that. It's actually, I thought the demo and the showcase of what it looks like, I thought, that looks quite good. When you get right up close to his grid, it looks terrible. But you could say that about a lot of games. I don't think if it wasn't quite ready, they shouldn't have shown it as a next. People were getting ready to see that.
That's the issue.
I think it just wasn't. I do wonder whether this is going to be similar to Spider-Man, and we're going to be a little bit like, oh, it's not quite as good as I was hoping that was going to look. Because
yeah, but Craig looked particularly bad.
Yeah, and rumours was it was an early build. It was probably a misstep by them to show that. In a lot of ways, I
But what
respect
about
him
the
for
brute
it.
in the cutscene as well?
The one where he's like talking at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That for me, if they'd have like gone all out to make him look real next gen, I think a lot more of it could have been forgiven.
Yeah. I wonder whether there's been some heads rolling over at 343 because that's their big tentpole title and they've kind of let them down a bit there.
Well, it's not the first time the game's been delayed, is it? It was meant to be launching on Xbox One. And I know it is, but...
Yeah, it's another like cross-gen.
Do you think it will still be, if it gets delayed quite well into next year?
Yeah, it depends, doesn't it?
Is it still going to be playable on Xbox One as part of the cross-platform
That's what they're
support?
promising, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you'd think so. And there was talk of like when that was shown, they were like, oh, the multiplayer's going to come at a different point as well. So, yeah, what are they doing?
I'm not quite sure.
And I think Microsoft know what they're doing. I think their presentation was pretty good. But I think they were let down a bit by that. I think what they're trying to do is make it slightly open world as well, but it's probably quite complicated to do that with a first-person shooter in that Halo world and make it work. They're probably having other problems with that.
You could have little clusters or encampments of Covenant forces that you encounter of varying different levels of, you know, it could be like this is a 3-star camp, this is a 5-star camp, this is a 1-star camp that's just full of grunts.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in there and you clean house and you kick an arbiter in the back and it's job done. Boof. That mission disappears. Whoosh. And that bit more of the map opens up and you get a little bit more. Surely it wouldn't be that difficult.
Maybe they're trying to do something a bit different.
And, you know, normally in a Halo game, you sort of get moved from point A to point B, and that feeds into the next mission, and it's almost one long. I would argue that Halo games have always felt quite large and open world because they give you such large vistas and playgrounds to play.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. They do.
When Halo first launched, you knew it wasn't open world, but they didn't really feel like there was a limit to the scope.
I think
what you could do.
Yeah, I think they did that with Gears of War as well, really well. It felt like big epic game, a lot going on, good draw distance. It just felt way bigger than it was. It wasn't open world. It was quite sort of linear cover-based shooting.
And on the original Halos gave you that sort of freeform gameplay.
Yeah,
that kind of hinted at open world overtones.
Yeah.
You could be driving around in a warthog and then see an enemy and lob a stick or a grenade and it blew up, and there was enough scope and space for that to play out and be kind of fun. That's where the fun of Halo first came from.
Do you think there's going to be last minute delays to the actual console now?
No, they've said not.
They've come out with that November launch window, haven't they? I suppose that was to reassure people, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if you delay the big tentpole title that you think you're going to launch with, people are going to automatically assume, does that mean that that's because the console's getting delayed? So they had to quite. But someone did. I saw a tweet where it was like, anyone now worrying that the new consoles aren't going to be very good because they're not launched with any games, and then they listed the PS4 and the Xbox One's launch games, and the PS4 had like Resogun, Knack, and some other nonsense. And you know, it's not a make or break for a machine, that's for sure. And I don't think when we got 360s at launch, what did we come home with?
Call of Duty 2,
Call of Duty 2, Cameo,
Gotham Racing.
Gotham Racing. So 2 first-party studio games
Yeah.
and 1 third-party game. And we played the wheels off the third-party game, Call of Duty 2, which we loved.
Yeah.
Cameo was a bit of a damp squid.
I quite enjoyed it. I think that's the point. That felt like a big leap.
Graphically, with the effects and the shininess of the...
Everything was shiny, wasn't it?
Everything.
On Cameo.
Well, I ended up going back and doubling down on launch titles because I got Perfect Dark Zero as well. Very, very shiny. Yeah. That wasn't that great a game, ultimately. I've tried to go back to it since, and it's still janky and not very good. And what else did it get? Condemned. 360 had a good launch. Yeah. But it was bolstered by some very... what's the word I'm looking for? First-party games had quite a lot of potential. Like Project Gotham had a lot of potential. It looked fantastic.
Yeah.
Probably looks dreadful now, but at the time it looked fantastic. Perfect Dark looked amazing. It didn't play great, but it looked amazing.
I think, sadly, this is where the delays feature kicks in, is so many times, like at the start of the year, me and you probably thinking like, oh wow, this is going to be one of the best launches ever. We're probably going to have Gran Turismo, was rumoured, Ratchet and Clank, Demon Souls. What else? We kind of thought we'd maybe get Horizon or Spider-Man, one of those two, and we're getting Spider-Man. But how many of those are actually going to be a launch game? Potentially 2, if we're lucky. That would be enough, because that would definitely be enough for me. But Microsoft need to be careful now and make sure they have something.
Well, let's wheel in C. Pliskin, because he's on the note of Halo Infinite. He says, for me, at least in general terms, yes, excluding the delay of Halo Infinite, which I think was a result of over-expectations. Most of the games that I know were delayed have yet to be released just yet. And those that have, mainly The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, have shown what their teams are capable of when they're given just enough time to develop, especially in the wake of a pandemic. So yeah, I don't like delays as much as anyone else, but I deem it necessary most of the time. Gazlov's Games, short and sweet as ever. Hopefully that doesn't apply to every facet of his life, but he says, on this occasion, I think the year's just a write-off. Let's start again next year. Detective Bookie, new listener. Thank you for contributing there, Detective Bookie. He says, as Shigeru Miyamoto quoted, a delayed game is eventually good, but a rush game is forever bad. That's a great quote. That's a great quote. And for that reason, I now envisage Detective Bookie to almost be like a Shaolin monk, meditating deep, but with very simple yet eloquent
writing a haiku.
Yeah. Well, it's not like a haiku. It's more like I can imagine him saying it in Japanese voice. A delayed game. That's very racist of me. Insert token Asian voice here. How dare I? I'm a privileged white man. I apologise. I shall flog myself with nettles in the back garden to make up for that, and I'll never do it again. Finster Gamer, a man who probably sounds just like myself. He says, I personally don't think it's good or a bad thing. It just is what it is. If the food doesn't look ready by the time it says on the packaging, put it back in the oven until it's done. Whether it tastes good in the end is an entirely different matter, depending on what ingredients used and your own preferences. I think as consumers, we place too much emphasis on ourselves. I want it to be done by this date. I want the game to be like this. A game, stroke, film, etc. is what it is, and releases when it releases. It's either of those things. If either of those things don't suit us, that doesn't immediately make it a bad piece of media.
Yeah.
Well, through that lens, though, I could release a game where you can basically press X or A on the controller and a digital hand goes into a poo. And if he says it's not very good, and I say, well, it just doesn't suit your tastes. Sometimes games, Finster, are just poo. Delayed or not. But I see where you're going with that one. Spiritual Dragon, new listener, another one with a name that kind of backs up his credentials. There's they have more time to add more, perfect a few things, maybe even a storyline. I heard for a side character. I mean, more time doesn't mean they will work on it, but why not? You have the time. He's made a solid point there. Goes back to my time where I was like, let's break out the twister and let's not do anything. And then a month before the actual release, they're like, have we gone gold? I Yeah. Oh, that release was not finished.
Mm.
It's buggy and the game doesn't save. A la No Mercy.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I
That must
do
have cost
remember
them a
that.
penny or two.
The Chronicles of a Gamer, aka Bobby, aka God. I usually don't get too upset on delays as things happen. Sometimes the delay is a good thing, and so I'm fixing issues or giving it a good polish. I do get annoyed when the game is delayed and then released. It's just another turd swimming in the toilet.
Very true. Comic Pictures 79, he says, whatever. Right, I guess he's not had a very good day. He says, whatever. If you want to play a game, you'll play it a few months later all the same. Been waiting on Dead Static Drive for like ever. Has Comic Pictures turned into a Valley Girl? Whatever. If you want to play a game, you'll play it a few months later all the same. Been waiting on Dead Static Drive for like ever. Am I annoyed about it? Not in the slightest. Does it make me not want to play it? No. What's happened to him?
I think he's just making a point there, isn't he?
I just in my head when I see whatever and ever.
Maybe he's making it that it's very bratty to behave badly about delays.
Oh, maybe, yeah. And I've read that as being a Valley Girl.
Bratty Valley Girl.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it's because I don't get out much. I just watch too many blonde chick flicks.
Been watching Clueless again.
I live on Clueless.
Alicia Silverstone. Oh.
Say sorry now.
Why?
You're not allowed to say that on podcasts anymore.
Of course you are.
Are you? What if our target audience is someone who's offended by that?
I don't care. People get upset over the price of milk nowadays, don't they?
Well, going back to his comment, he says, same goes for any game. Abbo Blober mentioned PUBG, which was a hot mess when it came out, but it's fine now. Maybe just keeping it on the shelf would have been better for some people who have taken the pleasure in riding the storm, so much of a muchness in the end. It's too easy to get lured into the new stuff anyway, so the odd delay allows us to refocus our attention on the old backlog. The backlog. Nice man. Is this man a new listener? I'm going to give him a clap anyway. I think he deserves it. New listener. So lots of new listeners. Scott's Gamer Geek. It'll give me time to reach Spartan rank 152. Laughing with my tongue out emoji. Only 5 more levels to go.
Top work.
Mm.
Yeah, delays do give way to being able to catch up with backlog, which we've done a backlog of shame feature, didn't we?
Don't ever listen to that episode. That was the
Is
day.
that the one where it all went wrong?
Oh, that was the Yoko Ono of episodes. Yeah, it was. It drove an unhealable wedge between you and I.
Paulina has that Yoko Ono look, doesn't she? Do you reckon she's going to drive a wedge in between us? The creative
Are you
work.
sure on Paulina's genetic origin? Because you berated me the other day and told me she was Spanish, and now you say
No, she just has that like resting face of like I'm gonna cause some bad stuff to go down in the studio.
Well, that's why I've got a long list now of backup co-hosts.
See,
Ross Kemp,
yeah,
tick, he'll come in.
Will he?
Yeah, he plays Sudoku on his phone, so he's a gamer.
She suggested a feature where it's basically me.
Warwick Davis,
Warwick
near
Davis.
Woodall Spa. He's played. He used to play a bit of Mega Drive back in the day, apparently, and he had Super Star Wars
playing as himself in Willow.
Yeah,
the video game.
Yeah, so he said he would come on if you ever got too
He's
deep
a top
for it.
bloke anyway.
Yeah, he said he would do it. Jason Cadbury, the Lincoln fine perfectionist of wonderful confectionery, the perfectionist confectionist. Jason Cadbury.
Phil Schofield, he's always keen, isn't he?
He's
keen. See Phil again.
Yeah. Holly Willoughby, she said she'd come on. So you just chill. Bobby, not these last, you should be first on the list.
Yeah.
The real deal. The platinum standing.
That was a reality call for me when he came on. I was like, oh, the fans are fickle. Let's go with the latest craze, don't they? Bobby was the craze that week.
They were hyping it. They wanted Bobby merch. They wanted drawing a Bobby. They're all. I got pictures of people burning their pictures of you. So it was. It was pretty savage, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get distracted. In the meantime, What's you been up to this week? I'm talking the man, the myth, the legend, Stingray. And if they want to find out who Stingray is, we've explained it enough. They've got to go dive the back catalogue.
Well, then his Nissan Bluebird, he gave me a lift back from the airport. That's what he's been doing, yeah.
He's doing taxis.
Yeah, he's got one of those, like, sort of little caravan trailers that I loaded all my luggage into.
Has he now?
Yeah.
If you hadn't slaughtered
He ain't got his licence for that.
If you hadn't
Although he's on grandad rights, isn't he? So,
of course he is. If you hadn't slaughtered the residents of Farmerton, like Pol Pot, maybe Wayne Ray uses that caravan trailer as a mansion.
for his scale.
Yeah.
Scale 1 to 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge. It's like Chatsworth House to him. Anyway, without any further ado, it's he storms up the driveway. Tom, you're here. You can appear everywhere, can our Stingray. It's time for a peek in what we affectionately call Stingray's boot, what's nestled between some counterfeit nappies and a dodgy copy of Battlefriend All this week. These are the release highlights for the week August 10th to August 16th, 2020. Listeners, these are out digital, physical, or will be by the time this podcast in your feed, but could be region dependent. It's been a very...
This first one's got to be made up. I swear you make these up.
I feel like it took us a while to get used to Zoom, and I think it's going to take us a while to get used to the dynamic of us both being in the studio again.
This small studio cannot hold two massive egos.
One ego, the size of two men.
Yeah.
Anyway, have you been through and picked your mummy?
I better have a look. Not much this week, is there?
No, not at all.
I'll go for the last one.
Of course you do. In that regard,
back from my days competing,
I'm going to go with the third one. So I'll start with the game that you don't seem to be that big a fan of. It's Brunch Club, PS4, Xbox One, August 11th. Welcome to Brunch Club, a 1 to 4 player game about food with a seasoning of pop culture. Each level and game mode providing you a difficult task to complete and put strain upon your friendships. Leaderboards to compete on. Who will get the best time possible.
That sounds terrible. Willie Morgan and the Curse of Bone Town, PC, August 11th. A letter from 10 years ago. An intricate web of lies to unravel and mysteries to solve. Explore an unconventional town of pirates. Dive into the past. Collect items and look for clues to help Willie find out what happened to his father.
Have you picked your Mummy film?
I will do by the end.
Okay. Metamorphosis, out on PC, PS4, Xbox One and Switch, August 12th. This is a sort of... Metamorphosis, I think, is a sort of game back in the day. What was that game on... was it Stranded? No, what was the game that launched on Xbox One recently, the beta, where you're the Grounded, yeah. If you'd really, really, really wanted Grounded, back in the day, this is the sort of person you are, you'd have bought this, right? Because you couldn't have it on your system, so you got something that was similar and you'd pretend. So Metamorphosis, play as Gregor, turned into a tiny bug and set out on an extraordinary journey to unravel the mystery of your transformation. Metamorphosis is a first-person adventure set in a surreal world where your newfound abilities are your last and only hope for redemption. I saw him walking around in long grass, and obviously he was a tiny little person. I had visions of you of doing that. Are you still thinking of a VHS?
I've got one.
Oh, right, okay. Do you want to tell me? Do it now.
It's a Roger Moore classic James Bond film, The Man with the Golden Gun.
Do you know what I'm picking? Picture the scene. Ben Affleck. Picture the scene. Bruce Willis. Picture the scene. Michael Bay.
Oh, man.
Picture the scene. Armageddon.
Yeah. Don't make them like that anymore.
No, they don't.
That was that same era of like the Jerry Bruckheimer sort of produced film. Is it Michael Bay who did that? I think it might be Bruckheimer.
No, I think it's Michael Bay.
Or is he like the producer?
I don't know.
Phil, just check that on the computer, please.
Well, while you and Phil do the research...
No, I'll read this next one.
Oh, okay.
You do the research.
Double Kick Heroes.
Yeah. Double Kick Heroes. Butcher hordes of zombies in rhythm with metal survive on the highway to hell, fighting on a epic freak show. Now with 24 levels of pure madness, 6 licensed tracks, and a community level editor to improve your own songs. That's available on the PC and the Switch, August 13th. Next up, we've got Everforward.
It's the perfect storm, by the way.
Is Brockheimer.
And Bay.
They did Gone in 60 Seconds as well, I think.
No. Bay
I'm sure that like... They did and Con Air. That's another one they did.
Well, good job we're not a film podcast.
We'll leave that to Harvey Retro. Through the Darkest of Times, PS4, Xbox One and Switch, August 13th. Berlin, 1933. Adolf Hitler is Chancellor. We all know the consequences this message bore. Unspeakable horrors and suffering would sweep across the world. Few would stand and fight the monstrosity that was the German Reich. Will you lead an underground resistance group through the darkest of times? You better take the next one because mine's...
Eastern Exorcist on PC, August 14th. Eastern Exorcist is a stunning 2D side-scrolling action RPG set in a fantasy Eastern world with the vicious spirits and monsters. Play as a skilled exorcist against chaotic evil to fight your way through the brutal world and experience different stories of joy and sorrow. I tell you one thing, Tom. Well, the producer, I'm red hot over here. I'm over here near the sound mixing desk, and I am absolutely red hot here in Phil's studio.
Yeah. It's how he got the best performances from the big bands.
From the mix.
Yeah, from the mix. Jagger, Hucknall, Mac.
Mick Mac.
Mick Mac.
Oh. Who's Mick Mac?
Lead singer of Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, is it? That's his name now, is it? It's not Mick Fleetwood, it's Mick Mac.
Wasn't that the baddie in the film I've just said we're taking home? Or is that Nick Nack?
I have no idea. Nick Nack was one of the baddies in the... Was he the man with
Man with a Golden Gun?
Yeah, he was.
Christopher Lee's henchman.
You as a child looks a little bit like Nick Nack.
Oh,
if people want to envisage, because Nick Nack had a very strong haircut, didn't he?
It's like the Buffon, but like sideswept.
And you would often get dressed up. Mumsy would always dress you in like the really smartest clothes. You would often turn up either as a cross between Nick Nack or Egon Spengler.
Oh, right, my pick. This is my mummy, please can I have this pick? UFC 4, PS4 and Xbox One, August 14th. In EA Sports UFC 4, the fighter you become is shaped by your fighting style, your achievements and your personality. No matter how or where you play, EA Sports UFC 4 puts you at the centre of every fight.
I'm still corpsing off the fact that you're Nick Nack. Have you seen the box art for EA's games recently? I've seen it a couple of times. I've seen the images released, and that, especially on Instagram, and I've thought, why has someone cut a picture out and stuck it in the front of that PS4 box? And then I've zoomed in and then checked, and it's been like, oh, that's the actual album art. Oh, that's terrible. That's really rubbish. It looks proper. It doesn't even look...
wonky, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't look great. With that note, Stingray probably thought we were on about his own custom box art for Armageddon and the man with the golden gun. He's probably also offended at us laughing at Nick Nack, because... That's not
R.I.P. Wayne Ray.
R.I.P. Wayne Ray, exactly. And with that, he's gone like confetti at a wedding. He just blows in the wind. And that's it, Tom. Those that paid attention at the top of the show, and I have to admit, it feels like it's been a real slobber knocking, as JR from WWE fame would say.
A little self-indulgent this week.
A bit too self-indulgent, really.
Just the excitement of being back in the studio.
Like two
among the greats.
Kids. Yes, among the greats. I think Alan Titchmarsh also records his podcast here. Green Fingers, he calls it. Phil, the producer, asked me to pump it because there might be some people that are into games, in his own words, and gardening.
I'm into that, yeah.
Alan Titchmarsh's podcast, Green Fingers, available on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, much the way you find our own.
And also, Alan, if you're listening, do the same for us.
Phil, contractually, you're obliged to do it.
Oh, is he?
Much like I'm contractually obliged to ask you what you're hoping to play.
I might have a little dabble and see what's in the sale, actually. But I don't want that to detract from me finishing or platinum Ghost of Tsushima.
Well, it's always that classic moment. You've got absolutely zero ambition to play anything that's not hyped right now.
Yeah.
So there'll be some great games in the sale for tuppence halfpenny. And you won't buy it. Ancestors is in the sale.
I was going to tell you about that.
It's always.
I thought you wanted it. Yeah, it must be terrible.
Every time I see it, I'm like, be in the sale next time.
I'm a bit of a hype monster. I don't think I'll get Avengers. So for me, my next game would probably be Cyberpunk. That's a long way.
Why don't you pick a game that's in the sale?
Yeah.
Tell me, and I'll send you loads of screenshots of it and hype it for you. Send you trailers off on YouTube and things. Have you seen this?
3 years old.
Yeah. You'll never know.
Yeah.
So pick a game you get quite
in
excited
bubble I
by,
live in.
and then send me all the stuff. And then, like, the last moment before I tell you to download it, I'll send you the review and be like, amazing.
Okay.
And if you want to, we can hang about at Game at Friday, on midnight at Friday, and I'll give you a load of, like, tap merch that I've bought off eBay. Like, here you go, mate. And then I'm
sad to know you will not be joining me with the PS5 midnight launch. Well, we don't even have to go at midnight. I just want to buy it from a shop.
Why?
Don't trust the delivery man.
How very 2000s of you.
Yeah. He might drop it.
I might drop you. Anyway, you're contractually obliged to ask me. I've had to pump you twice for this. This is not good for our relationship.
What are you hoping to play?
Yes.
Tell me more.
Much like our iOS game. Pull up a chair. Which I believe is the opening line, much like Pronto. How many? I mean, I did notice after 10 years.
Cooking up some recipes.
No, when Pronto's like, an opening. And then after the 10 years, it's like, all in the bullet time, baby. Yeah, so I use Pronto quite a lot because I notice that his damage is quite high.
He's a weed. I didn't like him.
Unbelievable. It's like one of the best characters in the game. I bet you were like, Gladius has got big muscles. Gladius is my favourite. Who was your favourite out of the King's Guard? It was, wasn't it?
Clearly, he's the strongest.
Wow.
Ignis just there cooking up some food. Prompto just like trying to score little hip fire trick shots.
Yeah, he's also sliding into Cindy. He also likes. He also has that thing for Adriana. I quite like it when you go in the underwater base there, and he's like, "You're quite badass." And then a bit later on, he's asking you like, "She's quite nice." And then when I was playing it, Noctis is asking the question of like, "So if you had to pick Cindy, Ariana," and he's like, "Oh, I don't know." So that was.
Are you going to be playing 7 after this? I know they're not like in any way related, but
no, I'm going to play 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then 13-2, and then Lightning Returns.
Okay. That's
what I do. Retro for life. I don't think I'm going to be playing anything else. It's a great time to go through the backlog. It's that summertime. Sounds like Phil the producer's dog is looking at trying to get out its cage.
Charcoal.
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
It's called charcoal.
A very expensive pedigree schnauzer.
It is, yeah. Has it groomed regular?
People wanted Law for season 2. I tell you what, they've got it by the bucket load this week, haven't they? Anyway, Tom, I do believe at that rate, that's all we've got time for. Have you got anything more to say on any of the subjects we've discussed today?
No.
It is very weird having you back in the studio. We've just got our groove, and now we've got to find it all over again. That's all we have time for this week, listeners. As always, thank you for your time, and we look forward to the pleasure of speaking to you again next week. Until then, happy gaming. And remember, there's nothing wrong with being given the unofficial controller. It's what you do with it that counts. See you, Tom.
See you, mate.